Hello, good evening, and welcome back. Socialism sets in. Among the coronavirus cacophony, now even the Conservatives are adopting what John the Communist wanted done, as we see the latest here from Rishi Sunak, where the government is to pay up to 80% of workers' wages, up to £2,500 a month. VAT will be deferred until June as well. Of course, you've got mortgage holidays, saying that you can't evict tenants if they're renting for a couple of months. You've essentially got UBI as well, in order to cover people's costs as necessary, people being paid to stay at home with the children, all those sorts of things. It's a socialist paradise, if you will. So, of course, the economy's taken a tumble, lost by about a third in the past month of the FTSE 100. So they're struggling. And it seems to be the globalists' last hurrah to try and suggest, I know that it was open borders and third world migrants and the Chinese coming over who brought the virus with them, and that the open borders and not being able to check people coming in was the problem, and we have since closed the borders. But nonetheless, we're going to still enact socialist policies which Labour wants us to enact. So it seems like, you can vote for the Conservatives, and historically, because they were never really principled, they just retain what Labour did 20 years ago. But now it seems they just do what Labour wants, but 6 months later, if that it seems that they've really shrunk the time frame ridiculously. And so instead of just retaining what Labour want, they're actually just doing what Labour want. But hey, desperate times call for desperate measures, and some would say, well, seeing as China has been able to keep their cases just down to Wuhan, having said that, of course, that the virus seems to be going around the world and hitting China again as a second wave as people come back. But they've been able to keep it down to their 1.5 million residents in Wuhan in Hubei, instead of allowing it to plough through the 1.5 billion people in China. So it's down to 0.1%, instead of places like Italy, which of course have been far worse affected, and the entire country has to be on lockdown, as the UK is trying to do here, with then putting troops into London, as I mentioned in my previous video. So we would say, well, if China can do it and lock down and have a harsher quarantine, then maybe the rest of the world should be doing it as well, and they should be much firmer and say, we can't trust you to take care of yourselves or other people, therefore we're going to have to tell you what to do. And in times of need, when it's a wartime, you need a strong leader in order to tell people what to do and pull together, because you can't have a longer time horizon, because the immediate is far too important, and therefore you need to tell people what to do when they're panicking. It's understandable, but how much of your freedom are you willing to give up in order to keep your safety? That is the age-old question, and of course Benjamin Franklin said that if you try and give up your freedom for safety, then you'll end up with neither. And so with any emergency powers given, so why the executive branch is in America, and of course now Johnson and Sunak trying to run the country by themselves, the entire country, as in individuals' lives as well. So, well, maybe this is for the best, seeing as they can't trust individual people to do what's best for themselves, because they don't have a long enough time horizon, funnily enough, and therefore they need to be told what to do in order to sort out the immediate, because by taking a step back and viewing things from a top-down approach, you can then see the wider picture, and the individuals aren't able to see the ripple effect that they are having. But government doesn't shrink, it only grows, and therefore by allowing the government to step in now, if they're successful, then of course they will say, well, hey, we've done well, therefore we shouldn't shrink now, seeing as we're doing a great job and you should continue doing what you're told. And of course, if they're unsuccessful, then they'll basically just say, we should have done this earlier, therefore we should stay in charge longer so that we can actually get to fixing things. Just like, of course, they tried to do after the Wall Street crash of 1928 going into 29, that they were then saying, well, yes, we need more government initiatives and incentives in order to keep people going. And it was only really with the turn of the Second World War that they actually started to see some legitimate improvement. But they were saying, well, we need more government intervention in order to help people out. So, well, what actually do you? Would it be better for the individuals to bounce back themselves? And the same goes for these jobs, and it is a very harsh reality to try and say, well, you as an individual are put in a very difficult situation at the moment, but if you play your cards right, you can actually come out better than you did before. As with any turmoil, there's always the opportunity for people to become very successful out of the difficulty, the difficult times making strong men and all that. Therefore, without government intervention, it is then down to individuals to make their own initiative and bring together people in order to make better lives for themselves. But government never trusts the people to be intelligent, despite wanting their votes, and so you can work that one out yourself of what they actually think of the voters. So getting back to the topic in hand, they say it will pay 80% of salaries for staff who are kept on by their employer, covering wages for up to £2,500 a month. The unprecedented measures will stop workers being laid off due to the crisis. Firms have warned the virus could see them collapse, wiping out thousands of jobs as life in the UK is put on hold. Which of course would create new opportunities for others, but then you could say, well, that's unfair on the original business owners who weren't planning on the coronavirus outbreak. So, well, yes, but it's also unfair on business owners when there's suddenly a new technology. So speak to Kodak about that, about digital photography. So is that then unfair? At what point does it say, oh, well, you couldn't have predicted this, therefore government needs to step in and help you out? Well, maybe. Or maybe we should learn to not be so reliant on imports and international trade, especially from China. Maybe we should learn that lesson by now. And instead of suggesting to people, hey, that's fine, you can keep relying on China, and if things go wrong, we'll bail you out. Or they could say, no, actually, you should have learned already with SARS and swine flu that you shouldn't trust China, so stop it. And therefore we're not going to bail you out because you should stop trading with China. That would be effective as well. So you could either let it have its natural flow and then allow people to learn from their own mistakes, or you could try and engineer the outcome to get people to learn different lessons, to get them to learn the lessons that you want them to learn. And that seems to be the way that the government is going about these things. Can't make people feel like they only have each other. You've got to make them think that the mother government will step in for them for whatever reason. So they say the wages cover, which relates to gross pay, will be backdated at the start of March and last for 3 months, but Mr. Sunak said he would extend the scheme for longer if necessary, and we have got expectations of it lasting 18 months, and it's not going to be sustainable that long, so no, you can't. Employers body the CBI said Mr. Sunak's announcement was a landmark package. It marks the start of the UK's economic fightback, an unparalleled joint effort by the enterprise and government to help our country emerge from this crisis with a minimal possible damage. Although when you're creating this much money because people aren't doing work, then you're really devaluing the amount of money, the value of money, given that now you're just giving people money for nothing, despite the work not being done. Therefore, there isn't that exchange. It's just money being produced. In which case, it sounds great, except for anybody with savings. So basically, people with savings aren't getting this money, in which case you're fucking over people who have actually planned for the future. And on top of that, not only are they not getting the money, but their savings are going to devalue horrifically because now you've just created this big surplus of money, which means all the money is worth less. So, great. You're rewarding people who haven't planned for the future and punishing people who have. I understand it's always a balancing act, but with something as large as this, it really makes you wonder what the purpose of this is. If it is actually just to encourage people to spend more, so you've got all that money flow and more places to tax and find out where people are spending their money and stop people from amassing any sort of power that might make the government uncomfortable. But how black-pilled do you want to get? So they say the government has faced huge pressure to intervene to support workers to prevent mass unemployment, as antivirus measures have seen many firms' revenues evaporate almost over midnight. Other measures to support firms and workers include VAT payments by companies deferred until the end of June, interest-free cash grants to small businesses, self-assessment income tax payments for July 2020 deferred for 6 months, increase in standard universal credit £20 a week, with the same rise for those still on the working tax credit scheme. Start applying then. Nearly £1 billion for those struggling to pay rent through increases in housing benefit and universal credit. And Capital Economics said it expected the unemployment rate to rise from just under 4% to about 6% due to the crisis. However, without this latest government intervention, the rate would have risen to the financial level crisis of 8%. So, considering the long-term damage they're causing, is it worth it? Probably not. And a lot of this will be for less skilled work, of course, for a couple of reasons. One is because more skilled work normally enables you to create more savings, so that you won't have to worry about unemployment and lack of funds. And also because the places which are most effective are where you're milling about with people, and it's more entry-level jobs like restaurant staff and the like, in which case they won't be having their job because they can't be paid. If you're trying to work at a pub, you're a waiter, waitress, whatever it might be, then you'll go into unemployment, but then you'll easily be able to get a job again once the crisis comes out, because there'll be positions open for you. And if you're in that position, chances are you're not living alone, and you've got people that you can stay with, live with, parents, friends, that kind of thing, and rekindle those relationships, if you will. So there's always hope. Always hope. But hey, until next time, why don't we enjoy this socialist experiment, see if we can actually retain the value of money, even though the pound is worse against the dollar since 1985, and try and pull on those old relationships, rekindle those friendships, make the most of the situation around you, the people that you know, the people that you're with, take care of the ones you love, look after the people in your local community, make the most of a bad situation, and you might come out of this coronavirus cacophony better than you had been before. So until next time, have a good one.